Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about vocal minorities, and I realised that me being someone talking on YouTube makes me kind of, to a degree, part of a vocal minority, but at the same time I wanted to talk about it in a both broader and more specific sense. Um, because there are, within all areas of society, to one degree or another, there is always going to be that one guy or that one group of uppity people who will always speak out on behalf of everybody else around them. And it usually what they're saying doesn't usually represent what the majority of individuals want, but because they make the most noise, they are the people that are most listened to. And you can see this everywhere. I mean, you can see it in the communities for games, you can see it in politics. You can see it in the more recent um, slew of various um, kind of social justice and anti-social justice um, discussions online and out in the world. You can see it in media. Um, you can see it pretty much everywhere, advertising especially even. Um, and it's a case of these people tend to ruin it for a lot of others. Um, Taking a game, for instance, where the vocal minority all are the people who play the game most often, but they make up, I don't know, maybe less than 5% of the overall player base. And yet they, because of the things that they argue for, because they're the people who aren't playing the game just because, just casually, or because they're playing the game as a lifestyle. They wake up, they play the game, they go on the forums, they talk about the game, they go back, they play the game, they eat supper, they go to bed. You know, oh, they eat supper, they play the game some more, and then they go to bed. And then they repeat it the day after, because in a lot of instances, those kind of hardcore, um, very streamlined individuals are the ones that make up vocal minorities. If they then said, "Oh, we want X," and they were the loudest voice, but they made up the smallest number of players, then there's a good chance that the person who makes the game, the developer, would probably turn around and try and make that change. Would that then cause a problem for other people? Well, it entirely depends on what the change was, but there's a good chance that the changes may not help people or may negatively affect people who are playing the game on a more casual basis, who are not doing things in a particularly streamlined fashion. People who have a day job, who come home and work, have to deal with their kids and then sit down for 2 hours at the end of an evening before they have to go to bed just to play a game. Yeah, those people probably make up the grand majority of the community, but they don't have time to continually comment on things, and as a result, they are a fairly voiceless majority, and at times they get screwed over. This again also happens in regards to politics, and this is where some of the issues occur, where you've got a very small group of people being listened to over a majority. And yeah, it comes down to just persistence and noise that you can make. And when the person when you're having a discussion and the person who wins the discussion is just the one that shouts loudest, then that usually means that it's not representative of everybody. If you were sat in the Senate in Rome, for example, and there was one senator who stood up and shouted down every single other senator in the room, and therefore got listened to, would that mean that his views were representative? Would it mean that he was right? Would it mean that he deserved to be listened to and dealt with the way that they were deciding to? No, it means he shouted the loudest, and it means that no one else was willing to stand up and confront. Um, or maybe they weren't able to confront just due to the amount of noise that this person was making. So should vocal minorities be listened to? Sometimes, but they can be hard to identify. Should there be in a lot of places a more wider appreciation of the individuals that things would affect? I'd say so. There are lots of groups that are very streamlined and that only focus on a very small amount of people, and they don't take a look at the big picture. And as I've said in various other videos in the past, I myself much prefer the big picture. And because if you have the big picture, if you have the whole thing, then looking at the smaller parts that make up that big picture is easier. Whilst if you only have that small part of the picture, then you lose sight of all of the other wonderful things and all the other terrible things that are surrounding you. But as a result, in regards to vocal minorities, the thing that I want to talk about most prominently is how you deal with them. Because the thing that prompted this video was that someone was talking to me in regards to always being shouted down and within their workplace. And it's a case of it can be very hard, especially if you're not someone that's maybe comfortable with confrontation or able to shout back as loud. It's tough because often that loud person can be seen as right, especially if they are eloquent and they are approachable in the way that they are loud. But eloquence doesn't equate to intelligence, and being loud in no way equates to being either the most effective or the most qualified or the most correct in a situation. How do you deal with them though? Well, it depends on your situation. In regards to the example that I gave a minute ago in regards to a gaming community, then that could be very hard to deal with, because the only way that you could really counter that would be to use the forums, fight fire with fire, go back and deal with things as best you can, report stuff in the, you're still working through the same system that potentially disadvantaged you in regards to the discussion in the first place. In regards to in person, as with the individual that talked to me about this, that prompted this video. So when going off on a little tangent here, when I was younger, I used to be very quiet. I used to not stand up for myself and make a lot of noise on my own behalf. And the thing that I had to do to deal with that was just to jump off the deep end and start making noise. And it can be uncomfortable to begin with. It can be really, really problematic in regards to what's going on in here and what you're actually having to try and do out here. But if you do it, it's worthwhile, because then you gain more control, if not necessarily over the situation. Even if you can't shout down that other person, you gain more control over yourself, because then you've made yourself more apparent. It's one of the reasons why I'm not hiding behind an avatar, or why I'm specifically talking my mind to a camera. There's no way around putting yourself out there unless you just jump in the deep end. Remove the things that you hide behind and put yourself forward to the extent that they do. It might be hard. Maybe they've got an advantage. Maybe you're disadvantaged in some way. But the only way to deal with a vocal minority is to either create a consensus within the majority, or to become a vocal minority yourself and fight back. You see this on YouTube already in regards to political views, and in regards to Gamergate versus not Gamergate. There are individuals that will fight both sides, and the only way to deal with either side, to one degree or another, is to stand up and make yourself be counted. Granted, in regards to things like Gamergate, things got hijacked and got driven overboard, and it turned from a set of legitimate concerns into something that was just two vocal minorities attacking one another. But that's where moderation is involved, and that's where, in theory, vocal minorities need to be vocal to someone, and it's that someone that needs to make the call. And if you are that someone, then that's a really tough place to be in, especially if you can't identify whether or not each view represents a good number of people or only represents the individual or individuals in front of you. But ultimately, the thing that I would say on this is just stand up and let yourself be counted. Stand up and make your own noise for the things that you want to make your own noise about. Even if it's just you're just making noise to confront some other noise. It can be difficult, but it's worthwhile. There's no point in sitting there and being silent and regretting the things that are happening to you unless you've tried to take an action in controlling those things. Life's too short. Don't let other people decide what you have to do with it. But anyway, those are my 2 cents. I hope you found it interesting. Leave me a comment down below. What do you think about vocal minorities? Are they a problem? Do people need to possibly even in school, be given a means by which to open themselves up to discussion, to actually standing up and being counted, standing up and having their say? I'd love to hear what you think. But yeah, if you like this video, drop us a like. If you found it interesting at all, then please subscribe for more. Anyway, take care, guys.